Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome to this Angels Don't Lie episode. I'm Jeannie Street, your host, and thank you so much for being here. Today, I have a really fun guest. I know you're going to love her energy. It's just sparking. Like you're just going to feel it throughout your whole body. So a beautiful soul. She is the creator of the Shakti method, and she takes people on journeys to really enliven and awaken compassion and embody creativity. So just lean in here with me. I know you're going to love this episode.
When she smiles at you, she'll say, angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. No, no, angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. No, 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 no.
I totally love that. You just reminded me of where we met. So tell me about like what you've been doing since I saw you. That was like before COVID, right?
I think it was right before, because I moved. So I was living at my parents' house at one point, because I lived in New York. You know, the whole story is, and I lived in New York City for 13 years. I was an actress. I was like, busting my butt in New York, doing the whole hustle and bustle. Yep. And around like 2015 or 2016, I ended up moving because my building sold. And I had always wanted my building to sell because I was in a rent stabilized apartment, and I wanted to manifest that buyout, the elusive buyout. And I did. And so it was this incredible thing where I was like, yes, I got this money. And like, now I'm going to go buy a house. But then I had debt. And so I had to, like accept the fact that I wasn't financially set up to buy a house. So I lived in my parents' house, and I feel like I was still living at my parents' house when I did that, because I remember taking a picture in the kitchen of my parents' house before I left. So that means I hadn't moved yet. And I moved like August of 2019. So anyway, it was a little bit further back than that probably.
So I love that conversation, Katie. Like I manifested something, but I wasn't quite ready for it. Like, I think we do that. Like we have this, like, we see that postcard vision, we get that yumminess of like where we are going, and we think it's going to be instantaneous, but then there's these other pathways that we have to go through and we don't realize, right?
Oh my gosh. And this is the thing. So I often get frustrated with myself, because if you look at, I don't know if you do like ever have conversations with people about human design and astrology. I often laugh because I keep going back to astrologers, human design practitioners, like, I'm like, so what's the beef, you guys? Like, why is everything not happening the microwave approach like everybody else? Like everybody else is like, I just had this vision and it happened, and here I am, now I'm a millionaire. And for me, it's like there's always an obstacle, and I get really frustrated by that, because I go, well, am I blocked? Like, am I just like really bad at this stuff? And then every time I go to the astrologer, I go to the human design, they're like, you're designed for this. You're on the master path, which means things are challenging. You've chosen to always have obstacles. Like, you're the mouse. I talk about myself like I'm the mouse in Mouse Hunt. Where I'm like, diddly-dee-dee-dee, like I'm like on the obstacle course. Oop, there's a problem here. Let me navigate that. Oop, there's like, they just dropped a trap door there. Let me find a way out. So I'm constantly finding like loopholes and patterns and resolving things. Like, my life has been about creating harmony, creating solutions, finding alternative paths to success and growth. And it's just really funny because I get so mad at myself, but like, that's me. That's my life. That's the way, that's how that's part of my magic in some bizarre way. Learning how to be the mouse in the obstacle course teaches people how to sort of navigate obstacles in life.
I also feel like it's very real. And do you mind if I like just, whatever comes through from heaven for you, if I share?
Heck yeah.
I feel like the reality is we might look at an outside view and think, oh, they're saying it was easy and I just wanted this and I got this. What you're giving and what your pathway is the pathway of truth. And you're saying, right, it might feel easy once you're on the other side, because now you've forgotten all the trenches and all the Alice in Wonderland holes and all of the things. But the honest truth is you're a wisdom giver. So that feels really important. And the way of a soul who is ready to explore, okay, so I am going to be in these spaces and it is going to be uncomfortable, and what does it look like to embrace some of that? And that's what they're telling me, like you embrace, I mean, okay, you're not like perfect on a pedestal, but like you'll find yourself maybe resisting or like struggling, but then you'll embrace, and then you'll be like, ooh, let's move through this. Ooh, let's, yeah. And I love that.
Yes.
That's
Thank
super
you.
groovy.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I often struggle. I teach self-acceptance. I teach self-acceptance as the path to growth, because we are not perfect. Not everything goes our way. And I think that the personal development world has been set up to sort of
failure, right?
Kind of. It's like, in order for you to grow, you have to kind of like, I don't know, there's pressure, there's all of this stuff. And I've fallen into that. And I've spent like this is where my debt came from, because I was like, okay, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get this coach, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And every single time I try and do it, there are still obstacles. And it's funny, because everybody I ask, they go, oh, well, you must have a block. It's your this, it's your that. But there's one thing that I'm a genius at, and it is navigating blocks. Like, that is the thing that I do best. And when I look at it from the standpoint of the goddess, and not that I call myself a guru, but what is a guru?
My goddess is right here. So
I know, and she's gorgeous. I love her. And that's it, like the movement, the flowing. But I mean, that's really what a guru is here to do, is to help you navigate your obstacles, because we all have a karmic path.
I think the guru is mirroring to you that you are the guru and reminding you to lean in. I get grandmother energy around you, which is very, very wisdom oriented, very grounded. Really, they keep showing me like the grandmother in Moana. I don't know if you ever saw the movie.
Yes, I love her.
They're showing me that for you. They're showing me like, that's your magic, is like opening your arms and like dancing, and like nobody else has to be in the same rhythm, because they'll follow, and then they're going to be like, oh, so it's not about like telling, it's about showing, and it's like opening all up. And I love that water energy for you too, like, whew, magic.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. So I live on the water, and so I moved.
Of course you do.
When I moved to the water, and so I can see the water outside my window right now. And what's funny about it is that it's a tidal water property. So it's sometimes full and sometimes completely empty. So I live in a space that is sometimes overflowing and sometimes completely barren. And when it's barren, it's mud, it's mucky, it's icky, and I think that the grandmother, it's interesting, because I had two very different grandmothers, and the grandmother who was the sweetest one, she had a brain tumor, and she ended up in a coma when I was like 6 years old. And I will never forget the very last time I saw her, I said, Grandma, do you know who I am? Because my mother said, grandma's forgetting things. She might not recognize you. And it was in their house before she went to surgery. The surgery was supposed to be routine. It wasn't supposed to go the way it went. And they made a mistake. And she ended up a vegetable. And so I visited my grandmother in this very bizarre state for 5 years of my life. The grandmother that I loved, right? The one who was the grandmother Moana, like, loved me and just accepted me. And then I had this other grandmother who to me was the Wicked Witch of the West. She was
Mm.
my father's mother. She was an alcoholic. She was abrasive. She was judgmental. She was like nasty. She was very difficult. And so it's interesting that you bring up the grandmother energy, because I feel like I lost that as a
Mm.
child, and I wanted it so, and I was very, very I'm seeing this as I get older, the level of disappointment that I felt with myself, with God, I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You said if I was a good girl and if I went to church and if I prayed and I sang in the choir and I did everything right, that you would help me get out of this. You promised. And it didn't happen. And I
Mm.
know that to me was like a knife in my heart, where I just like, I never forgave. I swear, like in a way, it's been very hard for me to forgive and forget.
Mm.
But
Well,
what
you're not
felt
supposed to forget. Like, here's the
no, no,
cue.
no. But I mean
Right.
the forget as in you let me down, like forget that I ever felt so betrayed and abandoned. I mean, obviously I'll never forget. Listen, I know enough to know trauma never leaves us. It becomes a part of who we are, and you integrate it. But it's like, I had a hard time letting go of that feeling of like,
Mm.
hey, what's the beef?
Well, don't you feel like that's fueled you? Don't you feel like that's been some of the fuel to um for you to embody your work? So like this is the duality, is like here's the gift side of it. Here's, yes, your anger, your, we can talk about like the shadow side, whatever. Like this is you embracing, like, look, if I didn't have that, it wouldn't have fueled me. I wouldn't be here. And God wouldn't use me as that energy of grandmother figure to remind me I had the perfect love, and I had that to show me, and I had I had the opposite to show me, like, not that
Right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like not that.
Right. Well, and that's absolutely, it's interesting too, because I have often found I get a lot of people coming to me with the most horrific stuff.
Mhm.
I get the really tough stuff. I get people who are really, really, really hurt.
Because
Really hurt.
God will use whatever you
Mm.
went through, and you'll start to, like, I always say that, like, whatever trauma, whatever experiences we've had, we'll see it in our clients and our people that come to work with us, because they're meant to crack us open up even more, like in our empathy and our compassion. And
Right.
yeah, oof, it's
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. But going back to the personal development world, I can't tell you how many people, as I'm growing, right, as I'm opening to Grandmother Willow, who is the all-encompassing, arms wide open,
Mhm.
I've got you, and I will hold you through whatever. It makes me want to cry because it's so moving. Like, I will be with you through
Mhm.
whatever. That's the type of person I am. But I have had a lot of experiences with coaches, and this is me learning who I am, right? Going to people going, why is this happening? And like, why this, why that? And I've had people say to me, oh, it's because of your trauma. Your trauma is your problem. And I go, that is one thing I cannot get on board with, because my trauma is what connects me to the truth. If I take
Mhm.
away that, then I'm not a vessel for truth, for people's truth to flow. You're
Right.
asking me to cut off who I am and telling me that that's not acceptable in terms of me being me. And of course, again, this is the question always, and how I've landed in this method, and what I teach now is two things. I teach compassionate integration and radical creation. So compassionate integration is that grandmother,
Mhm.
the grandmother Willow, who's like, hey, listen, I will love you and I will show you how to grow. I will
Mm.
nurture you and I will help you heal, and I will show you what's next.
Right.
It doesn't end here.
And I think what we've grown accustomed to and what's happening now in coming in this embodiment, as being a leader and to showcase, which is someone else doesn't have your answers, and you might think you need to fix something to fix it. And healing isn't about fixing or rearranging so you're like someone else or look different. It is about embodying more of who you are. It's about loving those aspects and those little parts that were hurt and in pain, and then letting that be your fuel for what you're providing in your life for other people.
Yeah.
There's the grace, right? Oh,
Yeah. And it's amazing. See, when you say it and I hear it, even I go, wow, what a stunning human being, right? Like, what a gorgeous soul to be there for people.
right.
And then I go, no, that's you. Okay.
Mhm.
That's you.
Right.
You are that person. There's no, like, I hear, it's been an interesting thing because I hear a lot of incredible feedback from people often, which is a lovely thing. And the feedback is like, you're a wizard. How did you do that? How do you do it? You're the most amazing person in every conversation. I feel more connected, and it's this magical experience. And it's funny because people say it often, but I feel like there's been this thing that I have done, and I'm always getting closer to, okay, so why have you chosen to go, not me. That's not me. You think it's me, but it's not me. Don't really say those things about me. You can say it, but I think there's as the embodiment drops in, the acceptance, the arms open up and receiving the truth, which is, hey, lady, that's you. And every single one of us, that is you. And you mentioned the guru showing, and I had a guru. I call him my teacher, but I had a man who was very present in my life who, when I met him, when I saw him, I felt very, like, I fell in love with him, not as a like sexual object, but as an embodiment of love. I just remember going, whatever that is, whatever he's doing, that I want to be that. I want to learn that. And so I did start to become it. And as I became it, I felt like there was more and more separation between us in terms of teacher student. And there was this evolution, this progression. And I talked about it when I did the talk at the event where I met you. I talked about this moment of drowning in my suffering, right? Like drowning in my sadness, because I was so overwhelmed by the hurt, the betrayal, the rejection. And it came from this moment where I felt like he had basically taken his arms away. And I was like, I'm going to drown. I'm going to drown. I'm going to drown. I'm drowning. You're not saving me. You're supposed to save me. You're,
Right.
And
There it
everybody,
is right there. You're supposed to save me.
you're supposed to save me, right?
Right.
Why aren't you helping me? And it was heartbreaking to me because what I saw in my vision was him with his arms folded going, then die. You're going to die, die. What are you scared of? I'm not saving you. So if you're going to die, do it. Do it. I dare you. And that was the lesson that really changed my life, because in that moment, I learned true surrender, which was, okay, acceptance. Down I sunk, down to the bottom of the sea, where I stayed there in the dark, feeling completely alone. And I remember being down there in this visualization, this experience, which was very visceral and real. And I went, so how long do I have to stay down here?
Right.
Okay. So I'm down here. And then what happened, which I will never forget, was I was filled with light. My body, like my whole self, like you see in Beauty and the Beast, and the Beast is like raised up and he's like, you know, coming with the light. And I felt this light, and it was so powerful that it came out my fingertips and my toes and my head. And all of a sudden, I woke up on top of where I had been before. Like I was on top of the mountain. And it was bizarre because it was backwards. It was like by dropping deeper into the sadness, the acceptance, the suffering, I let go. And in letting go, I was completely, I don't know whether you say ascended, reborn, transformed, you know, you can use whatever words you want, but I was liberated.
Mm.
And then I was at the top.
I love this so much. At first, I love that we brought in Disney movies. Like, thank you. It's amazing because there is some magic, right? Like like our imagination, when tuned in to spirit, brings us to having these holy experiences that you cannot make up. You cannot, they are Disney, like they are creative, like, and if you look around the world and you look at the best creativity, you look at those movies and those books that really like go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. It's because someone's experienced what you experienced. If someone's let the fuck go in order to allow that part of themselves to integrate, we can call it a death of an ego, we can call it so many different things.
Right.
But it's the fall to the rise. It's the fall to our own demise of the things that we're struggling and trying to fix and change and shift, and it's surrendering into God's arms. It's surrendering into the peace of I'm okay.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's part of my journey. It's not the part that's going to anchor me into the past anymore.
Right.
It's going to fuel me. So tell me about like, what are you doing nowadays? Like, where's your work bringing you? And
yeah. It's so I've created this method called ShaktiBomb, which is essentially the same process that I learned from my teacher. So watching him work, it's very similar. He used to call it the sword and the brush. And essentially what it is identifying what needs to be released and using that power to cut it away, to remove it, and then using the paintbrush to create and replace it with what you want. And so ShaktiBomb really is that same concept of remove and replace. And so if you look at what I call it, he calls it the sword and the brush. I call it compassionate integration and radical creation. So the process is always about helping you identify the things that need to be released, allowing them to be released and returned in the most beautiful way, absorbed into your being, and then transformed into something new. So we are learning how to literally constantly, I always say it's growth and healing at the same time, because there's no sort of finite end to either. And I think that's the thing that bums some people out, but makes me happy, because I know enough to know that I will never be completely healed or completely grown, because there's always room to heal and grow. There's always space. And so that's what's happening now is I've created this method ShaktiBomb, and I've been teaching it, and it has various tools. A lot of it is embodiment work and energetics. So we're combining various practices into one system that addresses the whole human. So we're working with the mind, the body, and the soul in one gorgeous experience. It's seamless, and it's doing all the things we want. So it's your shadow work, it's your neuroplasticity, it's your cellular healing, it's all of it via this method that really is quite magical. And it's really just the beginning, because I've resisted sort of taking ownership of this medicine. I've been like, no, it's not mine, but I'm the one who's created, the concept is there. But that's universal, right? Death and
Right.
rebirth is universal. But yeah.
You're
Yeah.
the magic, right? So it might not be your signature, like you maybe not created the whole thing, but without you, the people that need it won't heal, because it is you, it is your voice, it is your energy, it's what you bring to it, it's your uniqueness, it's how God is working through you to shift even the frequency of it not being a sword and it being compassion. So without you, it doesn't exist. And so the power is, it is of your soul.
Right.
But we are so determined in our mindset to think that, we have to do these things and have these accomplishments, until we start to have that breakdown of, it doesn't even fucking matter. It just matters that if I'm loving myself even more every day and surrendering even more, that this yumminess is going to really serve humanity.
Right. Yeah. And it's a way of life. It's a full practice. It's its own form of, it really is devotion. It's devotion to yourself. It's devotion to your body. It's devotion to your soul. And what's beautiful is that it can be taught through various different tools and practices. And that's the umbrella of what ShaktiBomb is it's a form of Tantra in itself, because Tantra is just a method of practice. It's a system that allows you to transform yourself. That's what Tantra is. And so I've built a system that is actually very much like a Disney movie. It very much is like that. It's like Mary Poppins. And I actually have one of my favorite practices, one of my favorite tools. I call it the Mary Poppins technique, because I teach you how to create an energetic hologram of what you would like to create in your life. And I teach you how to step inside of it, just like she puts them inside the chalk drawing, and it comes to life. And you experience it and you bring it home. You're never, it's a journey. And it's almost as if a lot of people say it's like doing plant medicine or psychedelics without plant medicine or psychedelics.
I hear you. Nice. I love it. Yes.
You don't have to do that, because the energy that comes through me is I have that energy. I just embody it. It's just who I am. And so when you come to a class or you do a meditation with me, your imagination just takes flight. And you go and you do all this stuff and you feel like you've been on a trip.
Right.
But the beauty of what I've allowed, or sort of recognized, the missing piece, I think, with a lot of those modalities that take you on a journey, or sometimes plant medicine, things like that, you will see an experience, but you will not be able to integrate it into your body so that it actually manifests. You'll say, I saw the vision. I saw it. Okay, great. So you saw it, but how are you going to bring that into your body so that it actually comes true? Now that's a different story. And that's like going to Alice in Wonderland, eating the mushroom, and then bringing that mushroom, or, the tea or whatever, making sure that that is in the cells of your body.
Right.
So that you
are the mushroom. My husband had a near-death experience, and he said something really profound, which goes right along with this. He woke up in a field of flowers, these purple flowers, and he said, and the sun was there, and he said, and it wasn't so much that the sun was there and separate. He said, I was the sun warming the flowers. I was the flowers. I was love. I was, I was everything. And when he was explaining it, like after it happened, it was mind blowing to me, because how I work in the heavenly realm, and when I embody the Holy Spirit, I am the Holy Spirit. It's not a separate thing. And so when you're delivering messages and bringing people on that journey, that's what it's like for me to bring them into the heavenly realm, where they're having like that. Wait, is that real? Like you said, like, is this a drug? Is this and the more we let go, the more incredible the experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, absolutely. I've, again, even that aspect of it, I've questioned it many times.
Mm.
Even myself, I question it. And I have a friend, and I was telling this person about how I tried, I actually tried, psilocybin, like I
Mhm.
tried mushrooms because I wanted to experience it. And I did a very small dose. And it was interesting because my friend was that I did it with, and we did it very safe, and we had someone there to, it was all done very, within the realm of safety, which I'm a big fan of. You
Mhm.
want to do it in an environment where you are protected and
Yep.
there's somebody there and all of that. So we did that. And it was interesting because she was like, look at all the color. I mean, she was doing all this stuff. And I said, I just felt peaceful. Like I just felt at home in my body. I didn't feel any of that. And I told another friend of mine, and who's worked with me, and he said, well, I have a feeling that's because you're always on that wavelength. You're always experiencing life like that, aren't you? You are always connected to spirit in that way because you're that type of person. So every experience you have in life is like you're high on mushrooms because you're so
Mm.
connected to life force energy itself that you hear the trees. And I hear the birds thinking.
Mhm.
I hear them speaking. I feel the consciousness. I feel and hear consciousness all around me all the time. And when I was a little girl, I remember um really struggling with that. And I used to like, oh, what a sweet child who didn't know what was happening. I used to get these really bad headaches, and I would like on the school bus be like, because I could hear all the kids. I
Mhm.
could hear everybody. And I remember at one point, I was so literal, like literally, like I didn't know the difference between real and not real. I really didn't. And if I was at Disneyland and we were on a ride, it was real to me, even though
Mhm.
everyone's like, these animals aren't real. I'm like, no, they are. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't know the difference. But as a child, I used to believe that this is like the sweetest thing, that I could take my head and crack it like an egg and all the stuff would come out. Like I really believed I wanted to do that. I
Mm.
wanted to like crack my head open and just let it all out because it was all in my
Right.
skull. And I had all these thoughts and all of these things, and I could hear my grandmother, and nobody, I heard my grandmother. I was in communication with her. They would turn the music on. I'd say, no, 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 she likes that. She likes the music.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, no, no, no. She likes the music.
See,
And I,
I felt it in my body. Like what you're saying, like was me with the feeling, like in my
right,
gut, like I could be on the school bus and like feel if someone's in pain, feel, I knew my knowing just brought me to like know the kid to sit next to that was really having a hard time,
yeah,
or to give a gift to someone, write a card to the bus driver because she was in so much pain.
right.
And I was able to lean in with that knowing, not innocently, not understanding God was talking to me the whole time, like, love them, bring them this. And those little imprints all around, so beautiful and so
Yeah,
um, so magical, and brought you to this place.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Tell me
Interesting.
about oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
no, no, good.
I was going to say, tell me about like your day. Like, how do you start your day?
Well, I've begun a practice now where I actually I have my coffee in the morning, and I put one disc of cacao in my coffee every morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like a little ritual every morning. Because I live on the water, my kitchen of all places is floor to ceiling windows.
Mm.
And so I sit in the window and I sip my coffee with my cacao. And that's where I get all my best ideas. Like first thing in the morning, sometimes I wake up, and even this morning, I've been very sometimes I feel like I'm butted up against an obstacle, and I go, I don't know what to do because I need to do something, right? I need to move the energy. I need to create a new pathway, a new branch, because where I am it's not quite there. What is that extension? What is that, what is
Right.
that? There's something that I need to build. my mouse hunt, right? Like, what is that tube that's missing? Like, I need to open the door. And I was sitting this morning and I got this, again, like you could call it a download. I just had this idea and I thought, yes, the 21-day embody your fierce feminine, challenge or whatever. And I started to write it down. And it's the culmination of everything. And it's so easy. And it just sits on the page. And it's like, this is what it does. And this is who it's for. And it's simple. And I go, okay, so this is where it sits in the environment. This goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And I can see the mouse trap, so to speak, the mouse hunt, so to speak, the game. And I go, okay. And it's when I feel the most peaceful. And so that's how my day starts. And then my days are I always struggle to try and make things predictable. I try to be that person that's like, first I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And this is how this is going to go. I always try to set my day up like that. And my life has never worked that way. I try to be sort of, this is my day. And sometimes, yesterday I went to the doctor, right? I made doctor's appointments. I did things I've needed to do, like get your mammogram and get your blood tests and, do all these things. So yesterday was a very literal day, a more scheduled day. And then today I'm back to this, we're going to do this podcast. And then I have clients and I'm going to teach my class and I'm going to like go for a walk. And, I'm going to start mapping out this 21-day program that I know needs to be built. And then I'm back in the creative flow again. And it's always this, and it's a constant struggle for me because I get mad at myself because that's how I'm really designed. Like I teach these embodiment fitness classes in Westport 5 days a week, and people observe me there and they go, you're very driven. You're type A. And I go, well, I am, but I'm also not. Like on the surface, you see a woman who's a go-getter, who's like every day, like I'm Mary Tyler Moore. I'm like, I'm gonna make it. Every morning I wake up, let's go world. And then I go out in the world. And then I'm all of a sudden Bridget Jones and I'm ready. Right. And I'm like, here I go. It's my flash dance moment. I'm ready. And then a truck drives by, splashes me with mud. And I'm like, damn, I was so ready. It was supposed to be my moment. Now I'm covered in mud. Now I got to go clean myself off. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, that is my life. And I think it will always be my life. And I think that what I'm learning through this conversation today, as I'm sharing this with you, is like, hey, you know what? That's kind of fun. Isn't it fun that you can, get up and put yourself out there and then have the best time falling in the mud? If you fall off your paddleboard and you get dirty, you just clean yourself up. Isn't that more fun than trying to keep yourself locked up and in control and perfect all times? Because lady, that's not you. I always have food. It's amazing. I don't have food in my teeth right now. I always have food in my teeth. I'll do an Instagram and then I'm like, oh, I had mascara. I had like balsamic vinegar on the tip of my nose.
Right. The whole word that you just said, which is something that I think a lot of energy sensitive people fall into, which is I'm trying, because there's this duality. You are in the light. You are a light worker. You move with the trees and the wind and the elements. And then in the physical world, it's to embody the physical part of a business. It does require skill. It does require a different type of energy, which we can get very lost in and forget our magic. So I feel like encouraging ourselves to stay in the magic, to not fall into the patterning of, because look, you're an energy reader, you read energy, you know it. And we can just totally be like, okay, so this has to be systematic, but what if that's the lie? What if that's not how it's supposed to be? And you dancing the door with mud and being like, God is slowing me down. This is a gift because I'm going to get back in that playful energy and then show up embodied in everything is happening for me. There isn't a problem. This is the universe supporting me. And the more I am me, the more I am embodying that, the easier life is.
Right. Yeah. And that you're 100% right. And it's I had this realization with a client of mine last week, and I said, you know what it is? It's right brain, left brain.
Mm.
And I said, it's like, you can either open this, like, you know, the door on the left or the door on the right. And the door on the left is dark. You know, it's like it's your strategic, this is me, but I think it's a lot of us. It's this habitual patterning that's like, well, I have to open this door, right? I have to.
Right.
And then there's this other door and you open it and it's Wonderland. And I'm actually designed to open the door to Wonderland. I am Wonderland driven. I am made of Wonderland. I'm more Wonderland than I am, you know, masculine. Let's go. I'm really not like that. But sometimes I forget, and listen, I'm a human and I've been very hard on myself. I've been very, you know, grandmother 1, grandmother 2, right? Grandmother 1 was an artist. She was a painter. She was a gorgeous, you know, painter, and all of the people on that side, the other ones, they were farmers. Okay. So these ones were like, we're going to paint and we're going to, like, you know, be free spirits. And these people were like, work on the land, you know, plow the fields, like, it's just so interesting. And I realized that if I spend more time working on my own neuroplasticity, this is what I'm focusing on, because I have to train my brain to open this door and not shut it. Because what I do habitually is I know this door is open and I go, well, yeah, but like, that's not that's not marketing. That's not blah, blah, blah. That's, you have to have strategy. You're going to launch a podcast. You have to have 25 episodes for, you know, it's like every time I want to embrace my magic and be that aspect, Wonderland, this aspect comes in and goes, before you go through that door, before you walk out that door, Missy, you better make sure that you're covered up, you know. And it's that, like, control.
So I love this. I think this is so good. And I want to dive in. I just want to go in for one second with you, because I have this duality of both sides of your family, and like the creative flow and the loving grandmother and the nurturing grandmother. And then I have the flow from the grandmother that was more harsh and the more, you know, but where life led her to become that harshness. So if I'm going back in the lineage on that side, and this anchoring of, we must follow rules, is rule followers. And like, that's the energy that I get from, you know, your father's side of the family. Like, it's rigid, it's hard, life is hard. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of lack. There's a lot of anger and resentment. And I feel like what's come in for you in this lifetime is this full on compassion to know, like, it's coming through in order to heal. It's coming through to come into this semblance of, we no longer have to live that way. And they're all working with you to undo that lineage of suffering, that there is lack, there is storyline, that there is, like, I even want to say, like, it's the government's fault. And I just feel like everything is someone else's fault, to hear, which is, everything is happening for me, and I am a vessel of love, and let's play. And it's like bringing them both together. They're like showing me like a Barbie house, and like bringing both grandmothers in. And, you know, your harsh grandma wants to be your soft grandma now. Like, she totally wants to, and she already is, like, to embody her full potential, which she couldn't do in life at all. She just totally, like, was so angry when anybody showed any, like, light, because it just was like, no. But it also is like, like, I want to play, I want to be but earth is really important, right? The physical earth is important in your lineage, because that earth magic is what you tap into. and
Right.
they just forgot, and you're the fairy
Yeah.
that's waking that up.
That's so it's interesting because on my father's side there were 3 suicides. So,
Mm,
and one of them was my grandfather, and they
that's why it's so dense.
they took his farm. The government did seize his farm.
There's the government thing.
Yeah, and so it was the government's fault. It wasn't his fault.
Mm.
He didn't do anything wrong. He had the farm, he loved it. They came in, they wanted to build 95 through Milford. They took his farm. And
So look at this energy, like that's what they manifested
yeah,
in their anger, in their frustration, in their lack of loving of self, and it just brought in that manifested. I'm not
yeah.
saying it's right, I'm just saying like
Well, yeah, and
manifestations
I mean, they
happen.
were, yeah, and they were, listen, it goes further back than that because the lineage, I mean, if you look further back, they're Polish.
Mhm.
So there was all kinds of stuff that happened in Poland that where this goes all the way back to land was seized in Poland, like,
Mm.
there's on my father's side, that's the lineage, that's it. And I think that it's interesting because there was loss on both sides. Like my grandmother's family on my mother's side was incredibly wealthy. They lost all their money um, in the Depression. I mean, they were incredibly wealthy. They lost all their money and they became farmers also, but they were happy farmers. They were happy farmers.
Mm.
And then my other side, they were angry farmers. They were
So
unhappy.
I love you bringing this into, especially where you're living, is to create a balance for both lineages to have joy in this new thing. So I don't know if you actually plant a garden or if you have plant, but it feels like merging the two and playing with them and inviting everybody in to come together. There's no more, they're saying there's no more separation. There was a lot of separation in terms of like pulling you from one side to the other. It wasn't like there was like getting along or nurturing, and they really want that. Like both sides want to see this this super balanced energy, and because that's going to nurture you and help you to I want to say restore, it's restorative within your body. So
Yeah.
there's not this two parts of you. It's like, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I have always known my left side is, I had to have a dental implant once. I got hit by a car on my left side. Like my left side's taken a real beating. My right side is fine. My left finger got cut off. It's all my left. My left has been beat to crap. My right has been fine all this time. And so it's interesting.
And this is your spring. This is your spring.
Right, right. And I understand too, when you look at the work, and so this is what makes so much sense too, and why I love this also is because I've created these workshops and I call it Mad Witch, Bad Bitch. And so Mad Witch is your wild creative side. That's your joy. It's like your Cyndi Lauper, right? You're like, I'm wild and free and I'm me and I'm going to do what I want and be happy.
Right.
Right. It's like that aspect, joy, happiness, all of that. And then Bad Bitch, I see it more as when people hear it, they're like, oh, bad, angry. And I don't see it as that. I see it as like mama bear, fierce, powerful boundaries. And I think that that's the imbalance that has happened is within myself and within a lot of us. It's like this part, we see the wild creative self as frivolous and unimportant. And so she runs away. Right. So she takes off to heaven and she's like, bye, see ya, I'm going to live on a cloud. And then the bad bitch is like, I shall forever live in hell. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, here I am in the middle, the embodiment of both aspects, trying to be a human on earth. And I'm being pulled this way to heaven and this way to hell. And it's like, if you look at it's interesting. If you look at my birth chart, my astrologer has said that she goes, no, you really went for it. You really went for it. I have a Scorpio moon at 0 degrees, which is the deepest, most intense embodiment of emotion that's available. like 0 degrees, like the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the well. And then at the very tippy top of my chart, opposite is Chiron, which is the master healer. And it's nestled with Sedna, and that's all the goddesses are hanging out up there with Chiron. And then there's this brooding deep self. So it makes sense as you're saying this, why I have always felt like I'm being pulled apart by 2 wild horses. And this one wants to be wildly happy. And this one is convinced that we shall forever live in hell. And it is Persephone, because she was both.
And now you're just going to bring them together. That's what you're going to bring together. Yeah. And just, I feel like the iteration of your work is just going to take, like, I feel like the spring is going to bring this yumminess, and then it's going to like really evolve into summer and open up for fall. Like, it feels like fall. I don't know what you have planned, but I feel like fall, it's going to be like lights, camera, action.
I'll take it. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's interesting because I had a reading with my astrologer. As I said, I'm always sort of like, I'm just getting little nuggets to sort of help me get a sense of, okay, where am I at? Where do I want to? And my conversation with her was, how do I wanted to know, because I wanted to be sure that I could sort of like keep myself focused on the right things, so that I don't constantly run for the hills, is what I told her, because that's what I've tended to do in the past, is I'm like, their world, and I'm like, get me out of here. And then I just go back. And that's been the constant thing, is I'm here, I'm not here. And what she said that was funny is, she goes, well, you're an innovator and you're ahead of the curve. And so, you're sort of ahead of where some people are ready, perhaps, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it now. You've got to be it now. And it might take a little bit of time to catch on. And I think that's, again, the imbalance of all of it. And I'm thinking of, so here's one last thing that's very interesting. So my grandmother had a twin sister, and she was also an artist, and she lived to be in her late 90s. And she was so sweet. Old Aunt Peggy, we called her, because I had another aunt, a young Aunt Peggy. And she used to send me these cards because I was an actress. And she used to say something like, I don't know why it's taking so long for you, but someday, like, somebody's going to find you, and, this, that, the other. She just kept always saying, like, keep going, have faith, don't give up on yourself. And this was my grandmother's twin sister. And I think that that's this sort of overarching message. And I continue to put out there what I'm doing. So, Mad Witch, Bad Bitch is a workshop that is available. I'm going to launch the 21-day Embodying Your Fierce Feminine. We're going to get that up, so there'll be a nice flow. And then the Creatrix Coven, which is sort of my school for embodying these 2 aspects of yourself and learning how to live from this space. And it's all open now. It's just that I feel like, as with anything, right, you have to give it some time to really grow, like a garden. And so where I'm at now is everything's available and it's open, and we're putting the pieces in place. But in order for it to really bumper crop in the fall, it has to, I have to plant the seeds now.
Yeah. And this has been a really vulnerable space in this winter, like in general, of like this of coming in to rebloom. I know so many of my clients have felt that too. Like, it is the age of the healer. It is what the angels are calling like the heaven now. We're experiencing healing here like we've never felt before. We're purifying in real time. And the more we're experiencing that, the more light, the more love, the more God energy is going to be on our planet. And so that does take this coming in, falling apart, and then nurturing and reopening and rebirthing. So
yeah. And it is. And also, when you look at the astrology, Pluto, so Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and he is the one that will always pull you down into the basement, right? He's the death guy, and he's the death card, and he's like, hey, you haven't surrendered to this yet, to just, you haven't done that yet. And Pluto takes 250 years to move. So to make a full cycle. And so this is a big time for a lot of us because it's the oppression, the depression, the oppression that was once there is the grip is being loosened. And I happen to have had the glorious honor of having Pluto spend a lot of time with my Venus, and my Venus is my inner CEO, my feminine leader. And it's been this constant battle between the two of almost as if I feel like where I'm at and what I'm understanding is the liberation, because there's a moment where it's in Beauty and the Beast. It's in all of them, right? Belle chooses to come back, right? She's not under duress. She's not prisoner. She leaves and comes back on her own. And Persephone does the same thing. She leaves and comes back because she wants to. And that's kind of where I think I'm coming to, is that whatever I'm choosing for myself.
Right.
At this point.
That's the biggest message right there. Choose it for yourself.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. We want to tell everybody quickly like how to find you, and I know we'll put everything in the show notes so they'll be able to quickly connect. Yeah,
basically, Instagram is my jam. So my handle is at I am Katie Kozlowski. You can always come over there. You can send me a DM if you heard something you loved and you want to connect. My DMs, my inbox. I love connecting with people. I love hearing about, what's resonating and things like that. And so there's that. And then there's my website, which is my name, katiekozlowski.com. If you were interested in, say, Embodiment Camp, which is my free gift, or which we didn't really talk about, or Mad Witch, Bad Bitch, or the 21 days, which I'm working on, everything's always on the website. So, you pop over there. And then I do think there will be a link to a gift, and that's Embodiment Camp. So that's a 3-day activation where we open 3 of your most powerful centers. So your crown, your heart, and your roots. So we're teaching you how to extend up to the heavens, connect with your higher self, open your heart to the glorious expansion of who you are, and then sort of solidify and strengthen your roots down into the earth, so you become this fully embodied human. And that's my free gift that I always offer people as a chance to experience this magical way of life where you become the magic, you become the glorious embodiment of your most authentic self.
Well, this has been magical. Such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank
Such an
you.
honor to be with you, hanging out with you.
Beautiful. I loved it.
All right, my friend, I hope that you really took away some yumminess. Please let me know in the comment section, or you can send me a message, a DM on Instagram, and also Katie one. Let us know what you're taking away from this episode. And if you're really interested in coming and seeing me in person and being in the presence of the Holy Spirit, I'm going to invite you to come on over to my website, to GenieStreet.com/events, and check out all of the in-person events that I have going on. All of these experiences are going to be limited to 10 people at each one to ensure that you get the full bounty of the reading and the energy that God is offering in that moment. So I'm really excited to step into this new way of working. What God has shown me is going to just really, really help people to step into their own great gifts and really receive so many more miracles. I'm so excited about it. Tickets are available on my website under GenieStreet/events. And I know you're not going to want to miss this. It's really, really phenomenal. So I cannot wait to see you there. I hope that you have a really beautiful day and give yourself a hug. God loves you. God bless.
You'll never worry or fear. Her love is special when she is near. The pain relieves the ties to the past. Her loneliness fades away. Angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. Angels don't lie.
So tell me about like what you've been doing since, that was like before COVID, right? I believe.
I think it was right before, because there were no restrictions.
Right.
And I think, honestly, I think it was February. It was like right before
February
COVID.
2020. Okay.
Yeah, probably, because right around when COVID happened, there was like a series of events. So I did that. I spoke at that. And then I took off to Maui. And when I came back from Maui, COVID basically broke out while I was in Maui, and I came home
Okay.
to like chaos. So that would make sense. It was definitely pre-COVID, because
Right.
we were there and there were no restrictions.
Yeah.
But
No, I remember nothing like that. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't think it was, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
I bet you're right. It's probably early 2020, and if not late 2019, like
Yeah,
in the
that's the other
fall.
thing I'm thinking, because I moved. So I was living, I was living at my parents' house at one point, because I lived in New York. You know, the whole story is, I lived in New York City for 13 years. I was an actress. I was like, busting my butt in New York, doing the whole hustle and bustle.
Yep.
And gosh, around like 2015 or 2016, I ended up moving because my building sold. And I had always wanted my building to sell, because I was in a rent stabilized apartment, and I wanted to manifest that buyout, the elusive buyout. And I did. And so it was this incredible thing where I was like, yes, I got